So a shot I've always wanted to be able to play but never quite mastered is that low spinning chip or pitch shot, until now. So I was very fortunate when the Scottish Open was in town being played at Renaissance just next door to us here at Archerfield. I got 15 minutes with the legend himself, Roger Cleveland, and I got to listen into a session with Mr. Pete Cowan talking all things wedges and technique. This is what I learned. I think I've cracked it. Let's get into it. So, the theory behind how to play this shot is relatively simple. You basically need to be able to control two things. One, the launch of the ball. Obviously we're trying to play this fairly low, so that's going to be fairly shallow. And two, we need to optimize or create the maximum amount of friction, right? So, in order to be able to do that, one, we need decent, premium, clean golf balls. Here at Archerfield, we're very fortunate we've got Callaway Chrome Soft X's. Great ball. Two, don't be thinking you can play this shot with a 30-year-old worn wedge you found in the garage. You need clean, dry, fresh grooves, right? So really, really important. See, too many people thinking they can play this with an old wedge. I know a golf pro will say this, but try and change your wedges. If you're playing a lot, if you're playing 75 to 100 rounds a year, change your wedges every year. Pretty good investment if you want to play this. So, anyway, enough monologuing. So, how do you control the launch? Right, two elements. One, you've got the attack angle, right? So how down or up you hit on the golf ball. So for this shot, we want to be relatively down. And two, we want to control or optimize the dynamic loft. So as you can see here, I've got this gap between the two. That actually creates a number called spin loft. So for this shot, we're trying to create a lot of spin loft, so a big gap here, but also angle it down quite a lot. So you don't want to be hitting down a lot with not much loft, because that's just going to go flying through the back of the green, and that's going to cost you about £7 to £10 or dollars, depending where you live. Not going to be fun. Also, you don't want to be too shallow, same theory. And also you don't be too shallow with too much loft, that's not going to create that launch. So, right, that's all the numbers. Very, very good, Ollie. How do you play it? I'll show you. So, how do you play this shot? First things first, we want to create a steeper attack angle. Simplest way to do that, pop that ball a little bit back in your stance like I've got here. All right, so you can see a little bit back of center. Now, one important note to this is you never want your shaft leaning forward more than the bounce on the club. So, what do I mean by that? The little number on my wedge here, you'll see, hopefully, says 12 degrees. So, I never want this shaft leaning forward more than 12 degrees. The reason for that is if it does, it'll dig into the ground, no spin, it's going to get that low compression one that I showed you a little bit earlier, if you remember the red and blue lines or poles a little bit close together. So, ball back in the stance. So in order to create minimal shaft lean here is I need to almost feel that my hands and my wrists really get quite active here in the shot. So I'm letting the club drop and I'm really, really flicking the hands. Bear in mind, I am not raising the handle. That's always death for chipping. You never want to raise, you never want any speed in the handle. It needs to really make sure that it's hands and wrists that are doing the job here. The amount, have a play with. So, ball back, lots of hands and wrists. Then the final piece of that puzzle is maintain the posture, maintain your height. The reason for that is that's going to allow the clubs to work down and across the ground, because if you're too low, you're going to be potentially digging into it very, very easily or too much, and you might come up and out of it. That was my problem last week, which Mr. Cleveland kindly spotted. So here we go. Let's give it a clip. Ball back, lots of hand action, nice and tall. Lovely. So, some of you might have spotted I've hit two types of pitch or chip here. So I've hit a longer one, downhill, then I've hit a shorter one, uphill. Reason for that is I wanted to just have a little side note on how you can maintain or control the distance of this shot. A lot of people like to use length of swing. For me, I like to suggest tempo or rhythm. So allow the subconscious to do the job, get a feel for the distance, keep looking at the target, few practice swings, and then hit. Too many people think about the length of their swing, they get too analytical, too cognitive, fancy word for it, versus what we really need you to be is sensory. So hopefully that's going to help you master this lovely low spinning chip or pitch shot. Let me know how you go, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, thanks for watching. Take it easy.